Hello, this is some old guy in Hawaii with a more detailed build video of Legoless Bear, a Moze build that uses no legendary gear. Okay, last video I showed the build taking down Wotan in True Takedown mode. Since then I've done the Guardian Takedown scaled, Circles of Slaughter, Proving Grounds, DLC content, and enough individual bosses to know that this build can pretty much handle any content in the game, again, with no legendary gear. We don't even really need a gun. The Moze rarely fires a shot outside the mech, out of necessity actually. Now the build is actually very similar to ones utilizing legendary gear. Skill point distribution is very similar. It's all about wreaking havoc with Iron Bear. Combat by Moze away from the mech is a distant second. Now without legendaries, however, Moze herself is a bit more vulnerable and does much less damage outside of the mech. To be perfectly honest, without legendaries, we suck at doing damage outside of the mech. So the focus of the build is maximizing time in Iron Bear and minimizing Moze's time outside of it by minimizing cooldown. And I'm going to start by emphasizing reducing cooldown. Now, Iron Bear's base cooldown ranges from 35 to 100 seconds. If we hop into Iron Bear, no gear, no skills, no guardian rank, fire our weapons till all our fuel is gone, then hop out, base cooldown is 100 seconds. If we jump in and then jump immediately back out, cooldown is 35 seconds. Unused fuel is refunded as cooldown. Now I'm going to use the 100-second figure in comparison, or for comparison, throughout the video. Normally we will use most, if not all, of our fuel before exiting anyway. If we get out early, all other things being equal, our cooldown will be faster. Now, because of the way Iron Bear cooldown is calculated, the most effective way to reduce it is not a skill or piece of gear. It is the Guardian rank perk topped off, which properly used, well, by itself, cut that 100 seconds by 2/3 to about 33 seconds. Okay. Now, for all of those who would balk at the Guardian rank requirement, a couple of things to note. One, this is a level 65 Mayhem 10 build that handles pretty much all content without the use of legendary gear. If we're playing at that level, 50 points worth of Guardian rank, which is all it takes to get topped off, is not too much to ask. Two, many of the legendary Iron Bear builds utilize topped off. Three, I've done at least 2 complete runs of Slaughter Shaft with this build with Guardian rank turned off and survived, and both runs were with an earlier, less optimized version of the build. So if you're a purist, you can run without Guardian rank if you work hard enough. Okay. My advice though is get this perk and leave it on. And on your way there, put points into action skill cooldown, shield recharge rate, and recharge delay. Now it's important to understand that topped off reduces Iron Bear's cooldown rate only while Moze's shield is full. If we get hit, the bonus goes away until our shield is restored to full. So we need to adjust our playstyle to avoid taking hits and optimize our build to restore our shield as quickly as possible if or when we do get hit. Next importance is Grizzled, a tier 1 blue tree skill. Grizzled decreases cooldown for every kill during the cooldown phase. Now the skill does not work exactly as worded because of the way cooldown is calculated, but with 5 points in Grizzled, the first kill reduces cooldown by a little under 5 seconds, with subsequent kills reducing it by 90% of what the previous kill did. So 2 kills will reduce cooldown by about 9 seconds, 3 by about 13, 4 by about 17, etc. Now I stated earlier that Moze rarely fires a shot outside of Iron Bear because outside the mech, she sucks at doing damage without legendaries. Okay, how do we proc Grizzled giving that issue? With Auto Bear. Okay, with this tier 2 skill, the mech stays active for up to 15 seconds after we exit, even if we've exhausted all fuel. Actually, with the ejection animation, ramming attack, and explosion at the end, it's closer to 20 seconds. During those 15 to 20 seconds, Auto Bear draws fire away from Moze, firing on and often killing enemies. Cooldown starts when we exit the mech, and kills by both Moze or Auto Bear proc Grizzled. It's Auto Bear that procs Grizzled 99% of the time for us. The end result of all this is that if we can get Auto Bear to kill multiple enemies while we keep our shield at maximum, topped off, we can reduce our cooldown to the point where our action skill comes back shortly after or even shortly before Auto Bear expires. And that's before we factored in any other cooldown boosts. And before I get to those boosts, however, it's important to understand that Iron Bear cooldown is a matter of diminishing returns. We've already gotten potentially considerable cooldown by combining 2 skills and a Guardian perk. If we continue to add elements that reduce cooldown, however, each added boost results in smaller and smaller reductions to overall cooldown rate. At some point, it's more efficient to forego trying to reduce cooldown further and instead spend skill points and or choose gear and anointments that boost other things. Now the build as utilized for all the aforementioned in-game content Added only a calm and an artifact with cooldown boost. I'm about to get to those. After that, I chose shields, grenades, guns, and skills which complement the core of the build, not increase cooldown. Now, in terms of class mods, the ideal choice is a Tank Girl Calm, which boosts Deadlines and or Stainless Steel Bear. Now, those two skills collectively increase Iron Bear's duration, damage, and toughness, its armor. The build maxes these out. Tank Girl Calm just increases them further. But the actual calm is not important, just the action skill cooldown passive. Any calm of any rarity will do so long as it has an action skill cooldown passive. The boost to cooldown rate, by the way, is always active. It doesn't require any action on our part. Now this one is a special. The standard listed action skill cooldown boost for any class mod is 39%. This says plus 36%, which is incorrect. It's actually more like 48, 49%. This one has both the primary passive and a secondary trait. That's only obviously we inspect the parts with a save editor. These are very hard to find, but not that important. Okay. If we have all the other parts of the build, this one only cuts about 2 seconds off cooldown over the plus 39% passive. Now, I've run Slaughter Shaft and other end content with blue and even green comms with the lesser cooldown passive that weren't even Tanko variants, and I had fun doing so. Okay. The artifact is the same way. As long as it has this 30-second standard action skill cooldown passive, any artifact with any other passives or abilities will do. Now, my ideal artifact, which I have yet to find, is a Last Stand with action skill cooldown. The Last Stand immunity is just in case things go south really fast. In the meantime, though, I have a selection with cooldown to choose from. And like the calm boost, this one is always active. Okay. Now, when we combine the calm and artifact with our previous skill choices and factor in topped off but not grizzle, which requires combat to test, we end up with the following cooldown performance. This lists cooldown time given a combination of various gear with and without topped off. These numbers are from actual testing. Now the reduction from topped off is a little more than 2/3 because I can't have topped off active without having this 13.01% cooldown perk also active. Okay. Note the bottom entries. Using the standard 39% cooldown calm, we're looking at 25 seconds. The better cooldown calm drops it to 23 seconds. Not that much difference. Considering we haven't factored in possible boosts from Grizzled, and given the 15 to 20 second duration of Auto Barrel, that's pretty darn good. Okay. But what happens if Auto Bear is unable to kill many enemies? What if we get hit while Auto Bear and find ourselves with a damage shield and without the huge boost from topped off? The next couple of skills, as well as a particular combat routine, address these vulnerabilities. First, there are the skills of Vlad off Ingenuity and Behind the Iron Curtain, which decrease shield recharge delay and increase recharge rate. These collectively get our shield back much faster if we take a hit. It's also why I recommend putting Guardian rank points into shield recharge and recharge delay stats. Next is Security Bear. Its shield cuts damage to Iron Bear in half. It does the same for Moze if she is under it. It doesn't stop hits to her shield, but less damage means the shield can be restored faster. Okay. Third and last is a proactive, if somewhat unorthodox combat routine that's as important to the build as any skills or gear, and that works as follows. While we are in Iron Bear, we are mostly invulnerable. We concentrate on kicking ass, but we keep an eye on our fuel consumption. Then, 10 to 15 seconds before we expect fuel to expire, or whenever we decide to exit, we do two things. One, when possible, we position Iron Bear someplace with good lines of sight to multiple enemies, and preferably close to nearby cover. Scan the minimap, try to keep the enemies to one arc out in front, clear out any stragglers in a preferred cover area, usually to one side or behind. Okay. Two, we try to significantly damage, vice outright kill as many enemies as possible. We soften them up, don't kill them. Okay. Then, when we exit Iron Bear, we head for cover. Do not engage with Moze. Back up, move to the side, wherever cover happens to be, and hunker down. Keep our shield full and topped off. Auto Bear continues to fire, draws fire away from us, procs Grizzle with every kill, and reduces cooldown. Best case scenario, as mentioned, we get back in Iron Bear before Auto Bear is gone. Now again, this is all dependent on both the number of kills Auto Bear gets and our keeping our shield topped off. Sometimes we have to run around more because enemy spawns compromise cover, and we have to seek new cover elsewhere. Sometimes our shield takes a hit in the process. Getting all of it to work consistently takes thought and practice and understanding the terrain and often enemy spawn patterns. We have to be flexible, keep our eye on the minimap, and make adjustments. That's actually part of the fun for me and the challenge. Now that's the normal routine. Okay, kick ass in Iron Bear, Set up Auto Bear for success, exit, run for cover, wait for cooldown, get back in Iron Bear, rinse, repeat. Even in the most challenging situations, there are normally places we can take cover. In the absence of cover, however, running around really fast while Auto Bear draws fire and kills things is also very effective. I will extol the praises of Speed Demon for just this reason when I cover Mayhem modifiers. There's also one variation to the routine I kind of alluded to earlier, punching out of Iron Bear before its fuel is exhausted. Anytime we exit Iron Bear early as mentioned, excess fuel is refunded as cooldown time. We still get Auto Bear and we still get Grizzled, but the base for cooldown becomes shorter. And there are times when it's advantageous to punch out early, say right before or during an immunity phase, or a break between waves and Slaughter Shaft. Anytime there's a lull in the intensity of what we expect to be a long battle, may be a good time to punch out early. I've done it several times during the crystal charging phases and the fight against Scourge in the Guardian Takedown to good effect. Now the crystal charging sequences are also at least one situation where we would expect following the routine not to work. We can't run for cover. We need to stay in the charging square, even out of the mech, or risk running out of time before everything blows up. I, however, have not had a problem. I've never had to redo a crystal charging sequence with this build so far for a couple of reasons. One, I already mentioned Security Bear, which will have any shield damage, allowing us to get it back up faster. Two, most Guardians don't shoot. They melee or they throw stuff, some fire beams, but those are few and far between, and while Auto Bear is up, they tend to target the mech. 3. When out of the mech during cooldown, I tend to move around the square as much as possible to avoid being easily targeted. I also dart out of and back into the square as needed to avoid melee attacks. Speed Demon again. And 4. As mentioned, I punch out of the mech early to reduce cooldown if it seems prudent. To repeat, I have never failed to beat the crystals while playing this build. So those are the primary keys to the build. Okay, skills, gear, perks, and tactics. Everything else in the skill tree either increases Iron Bear damage or improves Moses and in some cases Iron Bear's survivability. All these skills add to Iron Bear damage under different circumstances. A few I have not taken because they were too far down a particular tree to merit giving up other more vital skills. Don't worry, Iron Bear still does a ton of damage. Okay. Now, I passed on explosive punctuation because most experts on Moze indicate that it suffers heavily from diminishing returns and is not effective enough at reducing cooldown to merit spending points on it that deep in the blue tree. Now our cooldown is already pretty good. This tree also still has a point in short fuse, a Moze staple of many builds. Now since Moze's gun damage in this build is so poor, however, that point might be better spent elsewhere, like Fire in the Skagdan or Desperate Measure or even Vampire. Speaking of Vampire, what about shields and grenades? Okay, grenades are mainly here to proc Vampire. If Moze gets into serious trouble outside of Iron Bear, this can keep her alive. Vampire also restores missing armor to Iron Bear if Auto Bear does splash damage, which is dependent on Iron Bear's currently equipped weapon. For Moze, cloning matting trackers, CMTs, are still the go-to, but we can use other grenades as we see fit, as we please. Shield-wise, I normally go with this Limit Break. This is a purple unique from the Krieg DLC that, like its legendary version, the Plus Ultra, has the hidden perk of doubling both Moze's health and Iron Bear's armor. It has a reasonably short recharge delay and a fairly fast recharge rate. We can, however, opt for any shield with a short delay, fast recharge rate, and even a lower capacity. Now, I have several shields like that I've used on various content with little extra effort. Also, since we don't bother with the cooldown anoint on our shield, we have other options. Nova entering and exiting Iron Bear, especially exiting, while it won't kill anyone normally, can stun enemies momentarily, allowing us to run for cover. There are also shields that do knockback on break. There are probably other purple shields I haven't even thought about. And that leaves the guns. There are many good non-legendary uniques in the game, even just non-legendaries. But as I've stated before, against the toughest content where we need them to perform the most, proc Grizzle at the very least, they don't measure up. Even with the best anointments, they don't consistently achieve kills fast enough. We are more likely to go down ourselves trading fire with badasses trying to do that, and that ignores losing top dog. This does not mean we have no options. It's situational, but I have found some TDR chucks with homing mercs can get lucky against enemies that Auto Bear has softened up but not yet killed. Some Torg and COV launchers with high rates of fire and splash damage can do the same. Anything that can do a lot of damage fast while not exposing us to direct return fire can be useful. It's very situational though, and often a matter of luck. I am currently experimenting with crowd guns and grenades with an eye towards not damaging but at least slowing enemies, making them easier for Auto Bear to target and easier for Moze to evade. At least that's my theory. Another interesting choice are guns with constant Nova anointments, especially those with increased splash damage radius. It turns out that if Moze is holding a gun with an ASA Nova anoint when she enters Iron Bear, the mech gets that recurring Nova. And if the gun has increased splash damage radius, the Nova gets that radius increase. Certain other perks to splash or gun damage also appear to apply, although it's not Mayhem scale. This says 38k, but I was actually getting about 315k versus these skags. It's not a ton of damage, but it's not nothing that's free. So guns for direct damage, not so much, although I'm still looking at other possibilities. But I've left something out very important to the build that makes it so much fun to play. Iron Bear's own arsenal, from which we can choose pretty much almost anything. Okay, we have access to all 5 elements. I use the railgun with the corrosive sabot rounds and chain shock almost exclusively, but I also utilize the Vanquisher rockets, especially with active tracking, at least one for flying targets. I've been messing with the minigun and the nukes of late, but the only thing I avoid outright is the salamander, as the range is so short and I don't like things getting too close. Which brings us to vulnerabilities. I said Iron Bear was nearly invincible, and when I originally made my list of things to be aware of, it was pretty lengthy. But when I went back and tested a lot of it, Iron Bear was a lot tougher than I thought. There are things that can shorten its life or kill it outright that we need to be aware of, because if we get kicked out of the mech before its fuel is expended, we do not get that fuel refunded as cooldown, and getting kicked out of Iron Bear when we haven't prepared for it, and without Iron Bear, Auto Bear to help us in the midst of a sea of red, is bad. That being said, most enemy attacks pick away at our armor, vice take out big chunks. Okay, in any case, number 1 on the list, everybody's favorite, is barrels. Barrels can take out significant chunks, although it's element specific. Corrosive is obviously the worst, along with cryo and probably radiation after that, and that doesn't include damage over time. The more points we have in stainless steel bear, the less they can do, but watch out for barrels. Okay, any enemy with a suicidal explosive attack, if allowed to get right next to the mech, can be as bad or as worse, or worse than a barrel. Guardian diadems, those guys with the glowing kind of party hats on top, exploding loaders, bullet riders, etc., are best dealt with before they are in our face. There are some enemies that perform ramming or jumping attacks, including some Varkets, some Skags, some of the Kelds from DLC 2, some Necrodefane creatures. It's not consistent, but I've been kicked out of the mech by these on occasion, so I would watch out for them. One punch man will also one-shot the mech. If there's a theme here, it's try to deal with threats at range. Okay, that's not always possible, but when it's not, prioritize. All these things, plus normal enemy fire, pick away at our armor to varying degrees. Rocket launchers and some slaughter shaft waves can do damage that adds up fairly quickly. It's important to keep glancing over at the armor bar, and if it's getting low, get out of some of the damaging line of fire to reduce damage, and or consider ejecting from an Iron Bear earlier rather than later. Overall, be aware of our surroundings, prioritize targets, don't let anybody get too close, watch the minimap, watch your armor bar, etc. It sounds like a lot, but it's actually not. If you play with this build enough, the playstyle becomes both second nature and a lot of fun. What's left to cover? Mayhem modifiers. Any easy modifier will do, but I highly suggest Speed Demon. A kill by Moze in or out of Iron Bear or by Outer Bear procs Speed Demon on both. And running around in a mech at high speed is fun. Okay, potentially dangerous, you can run off the map, but outside of Iron Bear, the advantages of quick movement for Moze, especially right after she exits the mech, cannot be overemphasized. Okay, move fast, get out of trouble fast, get to cover fast. Conversely, the floor is lava is the one medium modifier to avoid. Trying to hunker down behind cover while having to move, less lava pick away at her shield, you get the idea. Okay, Healy Avenger may prolong Iron Bear combat a bit, but it's not a real threat, neither is Mob Mentality. I'm not sure about pain tolerance. The damage reduction it confers is 3% per hit. If it takes more than 3 or 4 hits to kill most spawns with Iron Bear, we're doing something wrong. Versus big bosses, however, I'm not sure. I haven't even messed with it. Okay, I currently go with Chilling Softly, the cryo variant of the 5 elemental immunities, as cryo is the one Iron Bear weapon I rarely use. I may experiment with the radiation equivalent instead and use more cryo weapons, including grenades, when out of Iron Bear, as mentioned earlier, though. For hard modifiers, avoid pool party, laser flare, and boundary issues, probably in that order. Anything that can hit Moze's shield from just getting close to an enemy or that limits movement as a result is to be avoided. Drone Ranger and Ticked Off are neutral given how fast Iron Bear deals damage and kills most enemies. Chain Reaction, however, is my personal preference. Now, nothing survives in close combat with Iron Bear for this to make any impression on the mech, and it has the added perk of giving another visual clue to where other enemies are nearby. Now, there is the problem of 2 or more enemies getting too close to Moze during cooldown and a chain hitting her shield, but I've encountered this very infrequently. Okay. As for very hard modifiers, avoid post-mortem at all costs. It's just too easy for death to appear and sneak up on us, and getting kicked out of Iron Bear early without even the possibility of Iron Bear to get us a second win is no fun. Okay. I also tend to avoid Dazed and Infused, as the wrong random elemental immunity can really mess up Iron Bear's effectiveness with specifically equipped weps or augments, which can't be changed till we exit the mech. Okay. All of the others are acceptable. I love Holy Crit. That's just me. I make good use of it. But I can see using Not in the Face. Buddy System adds more targets to deal with, that's all, but that's why I avoid it. Okay. Roguelite. Given how survivable this build has been so far, I think it's actually a viable choice. Okay, when played right, we rarely go down. In 2 weeks of playing this build, the only time I've ever really gone down was my own doing. Grenade in my own face, standing next to Iron Bear in a barrel when Auto Bear exploded, that kind of thing. So, as a neutral modifier, Roguelite may be the way to go. Okay, and that's pretty much it, I think. Like so many of my videos, this took longer than expected. I kept finding new things, and for a while I couldn't pin down how to present it all. Hopefully this excited you to try it out, Vice just confused you with numbers. I also continue to feel a bit guilty about the build, given how much of it is Iron Bear just being awesomely Iron Bear. But then I remind myself how much I actually enjoy playing it, despite the fact I'm an Amora main who 2 weeks ago knew a whole lot less about Moze. And I look at how important our actual play while in the mech is important, it just says, and I don't feel so bad. Okay, next up, True Guardian Takedown. So like or comment below and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Check me out on twitch.tv.com/SomeoneGoneHawaii at least twice a week. And as always, stay safe and thanks for watching.